For 30 years, the Son of God walked the earth unseen. No miracles, no followers, no sermons echoing across hillsides. Just silence. He worked, he ate, he prayed, and the world didn't even notice. Why would God hide his own son for 3 decades? What was he doing in Nazareth all that time? And what does that silence tell us about how God moves before destiny begins? Because maybe the hidden years of Jesus aren't just about what we don't know. Maybe they reveal something about how heaven works when it looks like nothing is happening at all. Here's the strange thing. The Gospel, which record every word and miracle that mattered, almost skipped 30 full years of his life. Matthew and Luke give us his birth, a glimpse of a boy lost and found in the temple at 12, and then silence. When the story resumes, he's 30, standing by the Jordan, about to be baptized, about to step into history. But what about everything in between? The Son of God didn't just vanish. He lived among us, hidden in plain sight. Why didn't the writers tell us more? Didn't Mary remember? Didn't anyone in Nazareth notice something different? The missing years of Jesus aren't just a gap in biography. They're a gap filled with divine intent. Think about it. 30 years of obscurity for 3 years of ministry. If you or I wrote that plan, we'd do the opposite. We'd want crowds, publicity, miracles early. But that's not how God works. Before the Red Sea split, Moses spent 40 years in a desert. Before David wore a crown, he tended sheep. Before the word spoke to the world, he learned the language of silence. Every hammer strike in Joseph's workshop, every prayer in the small synagogue of Nazareth, all of it was shaping the human side of the divine Son. He wasn't waiting, he was becoming ready to carry the full weight of what was coming. Sometimes heaven's greatest work happens in the quiet, not in the crowds. Picture it. Nazareth wasn't a grand city, it was a backwater village, maybe a few hundred people. Stone houses, olive trees, goats wandering dusty streets. A place so ordinary that Nathanael once said, "Can anything good come from Nazareth?" And that's where Jesus spent almost his entire life. He didn't live in palaces. He didn't study under famous rabbis. He wasn't known for his brilliance or power. He was known as the carpenter's son. He built tables, repaired doors, sanded wood smooth with calloused hands. The creator of galaxies, learning to shape timber. The one who spoke the universe into being, choosing to live among sawdust and sweat. If that doesn't humble us, what will? So why do the Gospels tell us so little? Some say it's because those years were unimportant. But that's wrong. In Scripture, silence is never meaningless. Every gap in the story is a mirror. It forces us to listen deeper. The Gospel writers weren't careless, they were deliberate. By skipping 30 years, they were saying, the preparation mattered, but the mission mattered more. Luke hints at it with one quiet line. Jesus grew in wisdom and stature, and in favor with God and man. That's it. That's the summary of 30 years. Not wasted, not forgotten, just hidden, and heaven loves to hide what it's preparing. Of course, the silence bothered people, even in the early church. By the 2nd and 3rd centuries, dozens of writers tried to fill in the blanks. They wrote strange stories, the infancy gospels, where the young Jesus performs miracles, gives life to clay birds, even strikes someone dead for mocking him. Fascinating? Yes, but not true. The church rejected them because they missed the whole point. They imagined a boy God flexing divine power early. But the real Jesus, the one who humbled himself, wouldn't have done that. The power to perform miracles was always his. But for 30 years he restrained it, because obedience was part of his preparation. It's easy to want to skip to the spectacular, but God builds glory in the shadows first. We live in a culture obsessed with instant visibility. If something's hidden, it's assumed to be irrelevant. But God works the opposite way. He hides greatness until it's time. He matures callings in silence. He tests patience in obscurity. Jesus didn't start his ministry at 12, even though he amazed the teachers in the temple. He went home. He submitted. He waited. He grew through the ordinary. Family life, hard work, prayer, community. He learned to live as one of us before he came to save us. That's not delay. That's design. Maybe the silence in your life right now is an absence. Maybe it's preparation. The hidden years were not empty. They were sacred. Nazareth was a furnace. Quiet, unseen, refining. In the noise of today, we forget how much power there is in obscurity. That's where empathy grows. That's where holiness hardens into strength. That's where the Son of God became the Son of Man. Not in glory, but in grit. The next time you feel forgotten, remember, so was he for 30 years. And when he finally stepped into the Jordan, heaven didn't say, now he's ready. It said, this is my beloved Son. Because he already was ready, silence had done its work. God's silence isn't God's absence. It's the sound of preparation too deep for words. In Nazareth, the eternal Word lived wordlessly. The carpenter built more than furniture. He built endurance, compassion, patience. He learned what it meant to be fully human so he could fully redeem it. And maybe that's the point. Before he could bear the cross, he had to bear the weight of waiting. Silence wasn't a mistake, it was strategy. So the next time heaven feels quiet, remember Nazareth. Remember the long years when God himself walked the earth, hidden behind the ordinary. He was working, just not in ways anyone could see. Because every great move of God begins with a season no one talks about. The hidden years weren't lost years. They were sacred years. The silence before the mission. Maybe God's silence in your story isn't a pause. Maybe it's a plan.